Good day to everyone tuning in. My name is John. On behalf of our team, I would like to extend special thanks to Professor Ramaya and Associate Professor Dr. Normalini for your continued support and guidance throughout this research journey. We truly appreciate this opportunity to share our study, which explore how influencer marketing shapes brand credibility among USM students in 2025. Research overview: exploring influencer marketing and brand credibility among USM students. Our research investigates how influencer marketing affects brand credibility among USM students. As highlighted in our introduction, this form of marketing has become a dominant force, with over 80% of marketing industry dedicating their budget to it, and 83% of marketers believing in its effectiveness. Influencers aren't just product promoters, they are trusted content creators who shape how youth perceive brands. We have developed a dual route framework grounded in two dimensions: a credible route based on parasocial relationships and influencer trustworthiness, and an immersion route which relates to content enjoyment and emotional engagement. These pathways helps us to examine how influencer marketing fosters brand credibility in a university setting. Theoretical framework and research gap: understanding the psychology behind influence. To explore this phenomenon, we drew on three core theories outlined in Chapter 1. First, flow theory explains how social media content that is enjoyable and engaging create immersion. When viewers are deeply absorbed, they often experience a loss of self-consciousness and heightened positive emotion, factors that can influence brand evolution. Second, parasocial interaction theory helps us to understand how students form meaningful but one-sided relationship with the influencer. These relationships are created through repeated action like watching, liking, commenting, even if they have never met the influencer personally. Third will be source credibility theory. Shows that influencers who are perceived as trustworthy, knowledgeable, and attractive can enhance consumer attitudes towards brand. Trust is particularly central here. It is not just about liking influencer, but believing in what they endorse. Our study respond to several gaps mentioned in Chapter 1. Most prior studies rely on fragmented indicators like attractiveness or expertise alone, and very few integrate this dimension into one framework. Plus, much of the existing research comes from Western context, overlooking cultural factors that affect Malaysian students specifically. Research objective and practical impact. Why this study matters. The study is focused on USM students aged around 18 to 30. We explore how influencer traits like credibility and relatability and immersive content style like short form videos and live session work together to influence brand perception. We ask questions like: does parasocial interaction influence how credible an influencer seems? Can the credibility increase trust in brand? Thus, enjoying the influencer's content make students more likely to perceive the brand positively. Practically, this offers marketers and brands useful guidance. Instead of choosing influencers based on their follower counts, they can now prioritize emotional engagement and perceived trust. This is especially relevant for small brands like cosmetic startup looking for cost-effective ways to build trust. Theoretically, we contribute a model that unifies emotion, immersion, and cognitive trust building. And, methodologically, we refine how influencer impact is measured, accounting for new formats like live stream and quick video content. These are crucial to the evolving social media habits of Malaysian youth. Thank you once again for listening to my presentation. I will now pass to my colleague for the second chapter. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Amir. Myself and Alia will be delving into our research framework and a brief introduction about the theories involved. I'll begin by introducing the research framework that guides our study on how influencer marketing shapes brand credibility among USM students. The framework adopts a dual route perspective, meaning we examine two interconnected processes: the cognitive route, which focuses on logical trust mechanisms, and the affective route, which looks at emotional engagement through content immersion. For the cognitive route, we explore how students form parasocial relationships. These are one sided, emotionally rich bonds with influencers they follow regularly. Influencers often feel familiar, even friend like, which reduces skepticism and heightens perceptions of credibility. That credibility, rooted in perceived expertise, honesty, and relatability, is what we refer to as source credibility. According to source credibility theory, when students believe the influencer is trustworthy, they are more likely to trust the brand they endorse. In other words, influencer credibility transfers to brand credibility. We also note that content engagement like tutorials, behind the scene footage, and live Q&A can enhance trust when students find the content relevant and immersive. Engaged viewers tend to view the brand as competent and sincere. On the other side, the effective route emphasizes how interactive, entertaining, and immersive content stimulate positive emotions. This is based on flow theory, which suggests that when content meets users' attention and emotional needs, it leads to enjoyment, and that enjoyment strengthens the emotional bond with the brand. Together, these two pathways, thinking and feeling, help explain how influencer marketing not only grabs attention, but also build lasting trust in the brands featured. I'll be covering the cognitive route, and Alia will be exploring the affective route in this presentation. Before going into further detail about the routes, we first have to understand the theories in our framework. Our framework draws upon three key theories. First, parasocial theory helps us explain how students form emotionally rich, one sided relationship with influencers. These connections influence how much trust and credibility they assign to both the influencers and the brand. Second, source credibility theory focus on how traits like honesty, expertise, and relatability make influencers more persuasive. These qualities are critical when it comes to building brand trust. And lastly, flow theory explores how engaging and immersive content can capture students' attention, enhance enjoyment, and deepen their emotional connection to the brand. Each of these theories contributes to one of the main two pathways in our dual route model: the cognitive route, based on trust and logic, and the affective route, grounded in emotional engagement. Now let's dive deeper into the cognitive route. How student thinking patterns shape trust in both the influencers and the brands they endorse. Within the cognitive route, this pathway focuses on logical judgment and trust-based mechanism influenced by brand credibility. It starts with the concept of parasocial relationships, where students at USM form emotionally rich but one sided bond with influencers through consistent exposure to their personal content. These relationships create a sense of closeness and familiarity, which lowers skepticism and primes the student to accept the influencer's message without questioning commercial motives. When these parasocial bonds are strong, students are more likely to perceive the influencer as credible. This leads us to our first hypothesis. A stronger parasocial relationship with an influencer is positively associated with a higher perceived source credibility. The next step in the pathway is source credibility. which refers to how students assess the influencer's expertise, honesty, and relatability. These traits are crucial in determining whether the influencer's message is persuasive. USM students are particularly influenced by peers who reflect their own campus life, speak in familiar languages, and share relatable experiences. When influencers demonstrate these qualities, students trust their recommendations more readily. That trust then transfers directly to the brand they are promoting. Influencers' credibility becomes brand credibility. This transfer of trust underpins our second hypothesis. A higher perceived source credibility of an influencer is positively related to stronger brand credibility. So the cognitive route moves from emotional familiarity to rational trust. Students form bonds with influencers, evaluate their credibility, and then extend that trust to the endorsed brand. These logical and trust driven process from the foundation of how influencer marketing works in our context. So far, we've explored how trust is built through logical judgment, starting with parasocial relationships and moving through source credibility to brand credibility. These mechanisms form the cognitive route, which shows how students evaluate influencers' message based on perceived trustworthiness and expertise. However, influencer marketing doesn't just appeal to logic. It also taps into how content makes us feel. That brings us to the effective route, where the immersive and engaging content leads to enjoyment, emotional connection, and ultimately brand trust. To walk us through how content enjoyment and emotional engagement reinforce brand credibility, I'll now pass it over to Alia, who will guide us through the effective route of our framework.
For this section, we are diving into a really interesting part of influencer marketing, what we call as the effective road to brand credibility. This pathway is all about the emotional side of things, the experiences people have, rather than just how they logically assess an influencer. Our main idea here is pretty straightforward. When content genuinely engages someone and feels immersive, it leads to enjoyment, and that enjoyment in turn helps build brand credibility. Now, at the core of this whole road is flow theory. You can see it highlighted on this slide. Basically, flow theory suggests that when you come across content that has clear goals, give you immediate feedback, and feels just right, like not too easy, not too hard, you enter this optimal state of immersion. This deep absorption really boosts your enjoyment and keeps you engaged. Think about it, when you are truly hooked on a video or a live session, you just lose track of time. That's exactly what we mean by flow. Our literature review, drawing on insights from researchers like Liu, Isanayake, and Ligaraba, really points out how key things like narrative-driven content, those detailed tutorials, and real-time interactive elements like polls and Q&A sessions are for creating this flow-like experience. These aren't just about entertainment, they actively pull users in, making them more open to brand messages and actually improving how they see the brand through positive emotional connections. This whole idea really sets the stage for our first hypothesis within this effective route. First, we have hypothesis 3. We are suggesting that the more immersed people are in influencer content, the more they will enjoy that content. Remember, immersion is all about that deep mental and emotional absorption. When content feels authentic, interactive, and genuinely relevant, whether it's a step-by-step guide, some behind-the-scenes footage, or a live Q&A, it really makes you feel in the moment. This higher level of engagement, as researchers like Disanayake and Ligaraba have shown, naturally leads to those positive feelings and ultimately more enjoyment of the content itself. For students at USM, this could be anything from relatable campus content to their daily routines. Now, this enjoyment then directly fits into our next point, which is hypothesis 4. We propose that greater brand content enjoyment is positively linked to stronger brand credibility. When followers genuinely enjoy content that features a brand, they become much more open to that brand's message. That positive feeling, almost like an emotional cue, actually transfers to the brand, making people view it more favorably even without thinking too deeply about it. As Liu and Unalmi suggest, content that's both entertaining and informative hits on both our fun and practical needs, and that really boosts how trustworthy and reliable we perceive a brand to be. So, for our USM students, if they find an influencer's content amusing or truly valuable, those positive emotions extend to the brand being promoted, making them see it as more honest, competent, and deserving of their trust. Together, these two hypotheses really complete our picture of the effective road to brand credibility.
Hi, hello everyone. My name is Nur Izzati Asri. I will briefly explain the methodology used in our research titled Influencer, Marketing and Brand Credibility in the Digital Age among USM students in 2025. Our goal is to understand how influencer content impacts students' trust in brands through two key paths, which is credibility and content immersion. For the research setting design, we conducted this study at University of Science Malaysia, targeting students who are actively engaged with social media influencers. The research followed a quantitative explanatory design. This means we aim to test specific hypotheses and explore cause-effect relationships between variables using structured numerical data. Our unit of analysis is individual USM students, which makes sense since we are studying personal perceptions and behaviors. For the population samples and sampling techniques, our target populations includes both undergraduate and postgraduate students at USM who follow or interact with influencers on platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. We use a non-probability purposive sampling technique. This approach was chosen because we wanted to focus only on students who meet specific criteria, especially those who are digitally active and follow influencers. Our targeted sample size was between 200 to 300 students, which is appropriate for statistical analysis in social science research. And finally, for the data collection technique, to collect the data, we distributed a self-administered online questionnaire using platforms commonly used by students including WhatsApp, Telegram, and Facebook groups. The questionnaire contained Likert scale items to measure variables such as parasocial relationships, source credibility, content immersion, brand content enjoyment, and brand credibility. This method was not only cost-effective and efficient, but it also respected the students' privacy and allowed them to complete the survey at their own pace.
Hi, my name is Nashaira and I'll be presenting the next part of the slides. The questionnaire for this study was developed as a structured, self-administered survey designed to measure the main construct in the research model. The questionnaire is divided into several sections, which is demographic information, followed by 4-point Likert scale items ranging from strongly disagree to agree, which assesses the intensity of respondents' agreement with each statement. The demographic section includes variables such as age, gender, academic level, time spent on social media, and platforms used to follow influencers. The design allows for efficient, scalable data collection while reducing interviewer bias and preserving respondent anonymity. The final version was then distributed online via Google Form to ensure accessibility and widespread participation among USM students, which is consistent with their digital habit. Next, for the measurement instruments is the process of figuring out the amount, size, and capacity of data. To gather information for this study, a questionnaire was given out to the USM students. Variables are used in terms of subjective criteria in these studies, which include judgment or ratings. On a 4-point Likert scale, response to various criteria are recorded, which is 1 equal to strongly disagree and 4 equal to agree. The demographic data of respondents is also collected. A type of scale used are nominal scale and ordinary scale. For pilot testing is a procedure wherein a small sample of chosen target respondents is used to test and evaluate the validity and reliability of the survey instruments, such as the draft survey questionnaire, before to its final distribution. The recommended sample size is 30 participants, and we agreed to proceed with the 30 participants to join the survey pre-testing phase. This study will primarily employ IBM's SPSS statistic, which is the statistical package for the social science, for all quantitative data analysis. The analysis will follow a structured, multi-step approach aligned with the best practices in empirical research. The 5 structured multi-steps that we use is first, descriptive statistic. Second is the reliability analysis. Third is the assumption testing. Fourth is the Pearson correlation analysis, and the last one is the multiple regression analysis.